All right, so now this is going to be a third in a video series about addressing or preventing reactivity. Now this is Albert. Albert bit an 80-year-old lady, and he's got some good qualities, okay? But he gets upset kind of easy, and when he gets upset, he bites you, you know? Now this is Murphy. Murphy has bitten how many people? Two people, right? Okay. Now, is Murphy a good dog most of the time? Right? Now, when Albert's owner brought him down, do you think she said he's a good dog most of the time? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because I always ask people the same thing. They come down, they got a dog, bites people. I say, hey, listen, you want me to get you a different dog? And they're like, well, but I love this dog. And I'm like, well, but he bites people. And they're like, yeah, but he's good most of the time. Okay, so we're going to try to extend that most of the time to all of the time where they're being good dogs. Now, we're also going to bring a Malinois puppy out here. Was the Malinois puppy here the last time that you guys were here? Okay, do you remember how he barked and growled and bit at all the other dogs? Okay. And our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to walk these dogs a bunch. Now, why are we going to walk these dogs so much? Because there's an inverse relationship between exercise and any type of misbehavior. If you want to say there's an inverse relationship between exercise and reactivity, fine, okay? But basically, you can walk out most problems in dogs. So I want y'all to see the demeanor of this dog, right? And then when Claire brings me this Malinois, it'd be kind of similar. And we're just going to take off walking and influencing. So last week, we talked a lot about letting the dogs just hang out and get to know everybody and kind of run around and play and carry on. And you remember that this little dog was barking and carrying on quite a bit, okay? This little dog, he was acting a little weird. Now Murphy last week acted just about perfect. So this is a whole arc of training. From the beginning, puppy stage, we're preventing reactivity. This is an adult dog, it's already bit some people and it's pretty reactive. We're addressing reactivity. This is a dog that's had enough experience so that hopefully in this video, you'll be able to see the stark delineation between this behavior and this behavior, right? So I'm going to assign all these dogs a walker, and we're just going to get to walking dogs. Very nice. We're going to walk that out of that little dog. All right, okay. Okay, so Alyssa, you can have your dog. And Clayton, I need a young, strong person for this one. And then I'll take this one. Okay. All right, so you're going to take him. Now, let's get Clayton a treat pouch. Now, during all of this, there's a wild poodle running around being crazy, right? Okay, and the reason that we're not going to, because I know somebody's going to ask me, they go, hey Stonnie, well, you know, why don't you do something with that poodle? Because that's real life, guys. I can't control every dog in the world, so I have to stay focused on controlling the one that I'm in charge of that day, right? Now, the poodle belongs to Clayton's mom, right? Okay, so like if you see Clayton like look embarrassed, that's because his mom's poodle is going to be famous or infamous, however you might want to look at it. Okay. All right, so now you guys can go over there by the wagon and just stand there. Now what I want you to do while you're standing there is I want you to periodically reward your dog whenever they're being calm, attentive, and polite, okay? And then I'm going to take a turn walking, and then I'm going to let each of you guys take a turn walking, and we're just going to keep walking until these dogs have decided that it's a better idea to relax a little bit and have good manners. Okay, now the dogs, you know, they're going to walk differently. This dog just got started, so don't expect him to be some kind of, you know, obedience marvel. Okay, but for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I'm working on my vocabulary and my exercise with small challenges course. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, we like to teach a very conversational obedience vocabulary around here. We say come, let's go, hup, easy, wait, and stay. And we want to make sure that when we're talking to the dogs, we can influence them in the broadest range of physical environments possible. So as we're talking to them, we teach them that when we say things, it doesn't matter like what kind of impediments are in the environment. They have to learn to perform all the time. They have to overcome anything that's in our way, right? And what our long-term goal here is to do is to teach the dogs that there are going to be times in life when they feel like we've told them something, and they're going to, they're going to initially think, oh, Stonnie, that's too hard. I can't do it right now. But over time, they start to understand I would never ask them to do something that they can't do, right? And so I'm just walking and talking. Wait, very nice, good boy. Now this also gives Albert something to focus on besides that Poodle and the other people that are in the environment, okay? Now when we first brought Alfred and Murphy out of the building, Clayton's dad, even though I'd been sitting here talking about how Albert had bitten someone and how Murphy had bitten someone, Clayton's dad ran right over there to them. I mean, literally just walked right up to Claire while she was holding them right within biting distance, okay? So you have to understand when you're dealing with reactive dogs or you're dealing with dogs that bite people, your ability to influence the people in your environment is never going to match up to what you wish it would, right? You're going to be able to tell your neighbors how to act, you can tell your children how to act, you can tell your friends how to act, and none of them are really going to listen all of the time. They might listen some of the time, but you got to remember, they have their own agenda. They have their own things going on, okay? Now we'll see if we can get Albert to go in this tunnel. And when the dogs first get here, this is one of the things that they're the most scared of, because they feel like they might get trapped in there. And I'm not going to force this issue, but I'm going to throw a couple of treats in there just to see if I could encourage him to go, okay? And he says, well, Stonnie, I've given you a lot. Okay, I still don't feel like I can do this today. I say, that's okay, buddy. We can work on that tomorrow, right? So we'll go around that tunnel, and I'll put on my list for things that I have to work on extra tomorrow is acclimating the dog to that tunnel. So always remember with dog training that like it's a marathon, not a sprint. So when you go out and you have your dog training sessions, you try to set some goals, but you have to understand that those goals are subjective and are going to change based on environmental factors. Based on how hot is it raining, is it cold, how do you feel that day, how does the dog feel that day? It's going to be a lot of things. And so all we really need out of each session is to be just a little bit better than we were yesterday. Okay? Don't try to get all your progress at once. Try to get a little bit each day. Okay? And so what I needed out of Albert here is I needed him to come out and not try to bite everybody, not bark at everybody, not to pull and lunge on the leash, okay? And I didn't get it perfectly, but I'm getting it a little better than it was yesterday, okay? Now, okay, all right, Clayton, you come over here and you're gonna do that with this Mal puppy. You're gonna do the same things I did. Do I need to go in front of you, or do you feel like you remember the course?
I think I remember.
Okay, so now I'm gonna move out of the way a little bit. And what I need out of this Malinois puppy is to work with a stranger, to work with a different person, a person that he doesn't know, and I need it to look better than it looked yesterday. I don't need it to be perfect. Clayton's not a professional dog trainer, although he is a semi-professional equestrian. Are you not, Clayton? You know? Okay, so he knows a lot about horses, so guys that know about horses are usually pretty good with dogs, okay? But what's really going on here is that I've established a very simple basic obedience pattern and vocabulary with the dog, and I'm establishing it in the process of establishing it with Clayton. And by having those two patterns together, right, I'm able to help this dog understand that Clayton is not a threat. He doesn't need to be barked at. He doesn't need to be nipped at, right? And then over the course of today, that dog will be walked by 10 or 12 people. And we'll do the same thing tomorrow and the same thing the next day, and we'll keep doing it until he goes home. And our ultimate goal is to convince him that pretty much everyone he runs into in real life is a potential friend. Okay? This idea that you can help reactivity by keeping dogs away from people or keeping dogs away from other dogs, well, that's crazy. Dogs like this Malinois puppy, they're bred to have a very specific in-group, out-group preference with bias towards the in-group being small, right? Okay, so when a lab comes out here, they naturally love everybody. With the Mals and a lot of the other little herding dogs, they kind of like they gravitate towards a few people, and then they put all the other dogs and all the other people into the out group. And that's where they feel like they need to defend the in group from the out group, and that's where you get all your, you know, all your alert barking and all your bullying behavior. Okay. Now remember from the last video, I told you also this dog, like he's a double-edged sword. He barks and nips when he gets excited and he's happy, you know, almost in a manic state, and he barks and nips when he's afraid. These exercises are specifically designed to help build his attention span, help build his impulse control, okay, help build his perception of out-group members as potential in-group members, as friends, okay, and to also teach him, like just like in simple old-fashioned terms, that he's not the boss of people. People are the boss of dogs, you know, so it's pretty simple. Very nice. Now Alyssa's over here and she's just waiting patiently with her dog, and there's a bunch of dogs a bunch of people around and dogs. Her dog's being perfectly quiet. So I'm going to ask her a question. Have you been rewarding that dog periodically for being calm, attentive, and polite?
Yes.
Now, is that the kind of thing that you might have taken for granted in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's all we're doing. Sometimes you have a dog that did a bad thing, they're still a good dog almost all the time.
Right.
And all we're doing is we're noticing a little bit more often when he's a good dog, okay? All right, so Clayton's done, so Alyssa, you can come over here and you can start walking. All right, now Clayton, go over there and you can give that dog to Grace. Okay, Grace, and you can just take off walking this dog, you know? Good, very nice. All right, so you're gonna come up this table here. Here, let's just start all over again. Now I'm gonna make a point right here. Okay, yeah, come here, I wanna make a big point. This is a super important point. All right, so Alyssa's been hanging out here for a little while, right? And now people do get a little nervous when you put them on the camera, but I told her to walk the course, and she, right off the bat, got a little bit off track, right? One of the things that I think is very important for you to do when you're working with your dog is to track how many mistakes that you make, okay? Because you as a person are way smarter than a dog, but you still make lots of mistakes, okay? So when things aren't going right in your training session, don't be so quick to externalize the blame onto the dog, because a lot of times, like you're the one that put them in the wrong position or had the wrong goals, or you communicated your expectations in a manner that wasn't clear and concise. Does that make sense? So I feel that it's very important to develop empathy for a dog, to understand why a dog might have made a mistake. Now, I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna apologist, right, and acting like a dog never does anything wrong. He should not have bitten anybody. But if we look back through the history of how he was raised, right, we can see some little things that where if we changed, the outcomes would have changed. Sure. Does that make sense? Now, I ain't trying to make you out as a bad owner. Yeah. And he's not a bad dog, but we do have to be honest and distribute responsibility to where it needs to be distributed if we want to make progress, right? And going out and having somebody else watch you do something, like where they can point out that maybe you didn't do it exactly like you did it yesterday, or maybe your communication wasn't as clear as it was, that's very important. It'll hurt your feelings sometimes. But what I want you to think every time that gets pointed out to you is think to yourself, well, if I can't do it perfectly, why would I expect the dog to do it perfectly? I mean, it's 90-something degrees. Is it hot out here today?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Okay. Dogs, however hot it is, for us, it's way hotter for the dogs. All right, so we're gonna go down this table here. Now, just stay on her, I'll just guide her, okay? Yeah, come down the table, and then you're gonna arc up here, and you're gonna bring the dog up onto this table, and we're gonna have him stand here. Now, we like to have the dog stand, every day when we take them out and we walk, I'll have them hop up on something, and I'll do a cursory physical examination. I want to look in their ears, I want to look at their eyes, I want to look at their teeth, look at their spine, privates, belly, joints and toes, chest, right? And what I'm doing here is twofold. Number one, I'm getting the dog acclimated to being on an elevated surface and being examined, okay? And that can be tough when you go to the vet, right? Okay? Vets are going to give you better service if your dog minds. Any vet that tells you that's not true, they're lying. Of course they are. Just like a teacher is going to give you better service if it's your dog. Now, don't have him sit, because when he's on this elevated surface, I need to be able to look at him, right? So the vet wants him to stand up there, right? Okay? Now, the second thing I'm doing is I'm feeling what a healthy dog feels like, right? And if I get in the habit of looking at their ears, like I looked in this dog's ears, his ears were dirty. You had a bunch of children. Do they act grumpy when they have ear infections?
Sure.
Well, why wouldn't a dog?
Definitely.
Of course, right? Okay, so the second thing we're doing here, we're getting used to what a healthy dog feels like. So that if we have a problem, we identify it early, and then it doesn't end up manifesting and become like a problem either physically or behaviorally, right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Right? Okay, so you're gonna come off of here, and you're gonna come right up here, and you're just gonna say hup, hup, hup. And these are just, you know how you do like those corporate bonding, trust issues, trust falls and stuff? That's all that's going on here. We're like, hey dog, listen, I might ask you to do some stuff. And remember when he first came out here, how much of this stuff would he do? None of it, right? And it wasn't because he was trying to give us a hard time. He was just like, he just didn't think he could do it, right? And now he thinks he can do it, and he thinks that doing it is going to work out to his advantage. Very nice. Easy. Very nice. Perfect. Perfect. Easy. There we go. Oh, I fell down. Oh. Now listen, that's the kind of train wreck that happens in real life. I fell down, I tripped over Albert, and then the cameraman fell, and then the dog missed the tunnel. Now, normally, hey, when stuff like that used to happen, he used to get real spooked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and remember what we were talking about how a lot of times dogs that bite people, they're just impulsive. They get a little scared and something bad happens. Well, that's life. And that's the kind of thing that only pops up when you get out and do a bunch of stuff with the dog. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. Very nice. Okay, and then just come up here and have him sit and stay for a second, and you can be done with that turn.
Sit.
Very nice. Perfect. Good. Now, this is counterintuitive to most counter-conditioning or remedial socialization programs, because most of the people have dogs that are a little bit nervous. They're a little bit nervous people themselves, and oftentimes they kind of have trouble making friends, okay? Luckily, I don't fall into that category. So come over here, man. So now we have the owner of, you know, a good kind of dog, right? A Labrador Retriever, and I'm gonna stick him walking this doodle, right? And now, have you ever met this doodle before? You met him one time before, right? Okay, right? But you ain't like secret friends or nothing, right?
No.
Okay. So this dog is going to have to accept this nice fella from Tennessee as the one that's in charge of this walk. All right, go ahead and walk him. And now you can pet him, love on him, give him some treats. He's not going to want to go away from his mom, but we're teaching him that when things happen that aren't his favorite things, it's okay. There's no reason to bite anybody. There's no reason to jump up. There's no reason to start barking. Let's work through it. Mm-hmm. And so I have people, just tons of people all the time walk him just because it used to make him so nervous. Right. You see what I'm saying? And that nervousness, sometimes it would manifest as him trying to pull away from them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he would jump on. Sometimes he really like them. Some people you've met him. You've seen people that he meets that he really likes. Mm-hmm. But in all of those situations, that impulsiveness and that tendency towards action, right, caused us problems. Now what he understands is even if he gets himself in a situation where he's got a guy who's not the best dance partner in the world, maybe not the best leash holder, best walker, like there's no reason for him to react, because the fastest way out of this, maybe what he considers an uncomfortable situation, is just to be compliant and get through the workday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like you're at your office and somebody comes in that he doesn't like, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I got to chase him off, he's just like, well, this just happens to be another person that I'm not super fond of. I'm going to be calm, attentive, and polite, and then this fellow will leave. You see? Just teaching them basic coping skills. Very nice. Now, I really like that. I really like the fact that he come in and starts looking for reasons to reward the dog. I have a lot of trouble getting people to remember to reward, and he did, and so that's really good. Okay, very nice. Okay, all right. Now hey listen, so you are a natural, that camera likes you, man. You see what I'm saying? And I like people from Tennessee. So now I'm gonna give you this Malinois, and you're gonna do the same thing again. Now this is the good thing about people from the volunteer state, is they like to volunteer. So that's awesome. Now again, with the Malinois, where we run into problems is just he makes decisions sometimes a little fast, and his decisions often are jump, chase, nip, you know, right? And so by getting him out here and working him until he's tired, we get rid of a little bit of that nervous energy, right? And then putting him in situations where he has to learn to comply, right? Mm-hmm. even if his dance partner isn't the best dance partner. I mean, people come here to see me, but I'm really good at working dogs. So the dogs are going to do well for me. But what you're paying me for is the dog doing well at your house. So I've got to get their hands in lots of leashes if I want to get ahead of these reactivity or aggression problems, you know. It just is really about getting the dogs out and making them see that there's more friends in the world than enemies. Because some of them's natural inclination is that people are enemies. And that's good if you live in an environment where you actually need a guard dog. Where these Malinois get into trouble is people buy them and they live in neighborhoods where there aren't any enemies, but they still want a guard dog. And so the dog's just kind of like forced to put random people on the enemies list because it needs some enemies, you know. Now, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, hey Clayton, walk that dog for me one more time. Just so we can keep them from. So you guys can't see this on the camera, but what happened is Alyssa, she brought her dog over here next to her daughter. And so like the daughter starts encouraging the dog to jump up and she's petting on it. And then in the middle of it, Alyssa starts telling the dog no. We call that the divorced parent problem, where you have the one parent that says, hey, go to bed early, we gotta go to church in the morning. And the other parent says, hey, listen, you can smoke weed in the basement, just don't make a lot of noise, right? And that's hard when you live in a household and there's conflicting signals as to what's okay or not okay. So we'll work that out. So what did I do? Instead of me coming over there and forcing and fussing at the dog, I said, I'm gonna let your mom and your sister have a minute to work this out, what's expected, and you're gonna go back to doing something constructive. Does that make sense? And so I just took Clayton, because Clayton's a good hard worker and I knew he would take the dog. I said, take the dog out of the situation where he is being encouraged not to live up to his full potential. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. And that kept me from having to fuss at the dog. I'm not some, person that is not like, I'm not anti-fussing when it needs to be happen, but most of the time I feel like if we can just back up and look at the issue broad, from a broad perspective, we can usually come to a solution that doesn't require a lot of fussing. Very nice. Now you guys will notice this dog's tongue's starting to hang out a little bit. The farther his tongue hangs out, the less I have to worry about him being reactive. And you'll look at Murphy. Murphy's almost done with his session because his tongue's hanging way out. We call that the fatigue meter. And then we're going to go in and get Clayton's dog. And we're going to talk about a dog that's friendly and would never like nip or bite at a person, and but he can still be dangerous in his own way. All right, that's good. Clayton, you can just take that dog back over to Alyssa and I'll go get your dog. All right, guys, so this is Jaguar. Jaguar is a German Shepherd Poodle mix, and that crazy Poodle that's running around, that's his, kind of his housemate, right? So, of course, he wants to go access this other Poodle and run and play. And you see that where he yawn like that? That's what's called a stress yawn, because he's really not super happy about having to come out here and like do his vocabulary work before he gets to go play, okay? But like I was telling his owner, Clayton, he's a young guy, like you always have to put the work before play. You can play hard, but the moment playing hard gets in front of work, you're gonna have some bad consequences, right? So I'm gonna walk him one time, right? And then we're gonna let Clayton walk him. And you might notice a little difference in terms of how the dog behaves for me and Clayton, because he knows I'm a taskmaster. He knows I'm not gonna let him off the leash to go play with the other dog until he's been calm, attentive, and polite, and he showed me basic mastery of his vocabulary under a broad range of physical conditions. Even if this other Poodle, who's kind of stalking us from behind, comes up and says, come on, man, you can get off work, I want this dog to understand that the work always comes first, right? And then Clayton, he's only about like 26 years old. So you know what it's like to be 26. You wanna party a lot, But in this dog situation, okay, Clayton is an equestrian, his sister is an equestrian, and this dog is going to be around like riding arenas a lot. And he's got that German Shepherd in him that kind of makes him want to chase. And he wants to chase like horses, chases other dogs, he chases farm equipment some. And so it's very important that he learn to show some impulse control. okay, so that he continues to get to go to those places. If he's going to be a danger to somebody that's on a horse, well, that's even worse than a dog that's going to nip you, okay? I mean, I don't know if you guys have a lot of experience with horses, but horses, it's very easy for a horse to hurt a dog by kicking it or stomping it, and it's very easy for a dog to hurt a horse by spooking it up, up, and running it through a fence, up, up. And it's very, very easy, especially for novice riders, to be on a horse and have a dog spook the horse and then fall off. And there's a lot of spinal cord injuries related to that we have to deal with. Up, up, up. All right, now you'll see where there's been moments when I'm walking him where I kind of lose his focus a little bit, and when he loses focus, his feet kind of get off of the equipment. And if you could see maybe a little bit in the camera, what was going on there is the other two dogs that he lives with were coming up, and they were like, hey man, come on, you can play. And what I'm doing in this situation to work on his impulse control is I'm holding his access to those other dogs hostage to his obedience. So in this case, getting to play with this dog and that other dog, okay, is completely contingent upon him being calm, attentive, and polite, and being able to remain focused in a situation where other things are encouraging him to not be focused, okay? And this is what's going to have to happen if I'm going to be able to take this dog into a riding arena, okay? If I'm going to be able to take this dog into a paddock as I'm moving horses from one area to the other. If I'm going to be able to have the dog out of the truck when I'm loading dogs onto the trailer, okay? All right, so Clayton, you come on over. Now, he's liable to pull a little bit and whatever, okay? And for this style of training, okay, you're not really going to fuss, okay? You're just going to keep walking, and we're going to make him understand that he's not going to get what he wants until he's given you what you want, okay? Now, you see, right off the bat, we're going to get like a little less focus with Clayton, you know, right? Because his perception of working with Clayton is more partying and less working.
Right, you can tell that immediately.
Yeah. And it's easy to be my age or your age and like lecture a kid about the work. Grace, how old's Grace, 15?
15.
Yeah, it's easy for me to lecture Grace about being on her phone when I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? But it's hard for me to, because you know, but if I remember, and it's hard, it gets harder every year, but if I remember right, I was the same way when I was that age. So just like I ask for the owners to have empathy towards the dogs when it comes to not doing things perfectly, have empathy towards your children and your neighbors and your spouses, because the dog training is not as important to them as it is to you until the dog knocks them down or spills wine on them or tears up their yard. You know, and then it becomes important. But in the beginning stages, it's not. Now what you'll notice as Clayton continues to walk him, he'll start to calm down. And he'll start to realize that Clayton is going to do the same thing I'm going to do. We're going to keep plugging away until we get the type of behavior that we feel earns access to the other dogs. Very nice, very nice. Now, so you'll remember from when I was talking earlier, every day we try to get the dogs to be a little better than they were yesterday, okay? So if Clayton can manage to get a good stay here, we'll pop him up on the table, do our cursory exam, and if he does good there, then we'll let him off to play with those other dogs, because that will be a little better than he did yesterday. Very good. Okay, Clayton, so come on up this long table and then come over here and put him in a standing position. And we'll do a cursory physical examination on him. And if you guys get through that, hey, listen, now it's party time. You can go do whatever you want to with him. Play with the dogs, get naked, roll around in the grass. I don't care. Very nice. Now come on over here. Hop him up on the exam table, and I'm going to let you do this all on your own. Now we're going to look in his ears. come around on this side of the table so that they can see you. There you go. So we're going to go ears, looking for any gunk, any odd smells, eyes. Take your thumbs, open up his eyes, teeth, look at his gum line, because sometimes, especially farm dogs, will chew on something and they'll get a little irritant in their gum line. And of course, you ever had a toothache, it makes you a little grouchy. Spine, take your hand, run it down his spine. Good. Privates. There you go. Look at his pee-pee there. Make sure there's not any weird stuff coming out. There you go. Feel his joints. If his joints are hurting him, they'll feel hot. Okay. Toes. Very nice. All right, now go back in front of him. Good. Give him a big hug. Love on him. Very nice. Now gradually put your hands in his leash and take his leash off. Pat him and then tell him okay. And he just earned, this is the positive reinforcement in this part of the session. That dog just earned his access to the other dogs. So even though Clayton, he's a young guy, he doesn't really like carrying a bunch of treats around and whatever, but that doesn't mean he's not a positive reinforcement trainer. It just means that like he's using a little bit of a different approach. He's still operating on the principle of the dog gains access to what it wants via indirect action. Just instead of food, he's saying you can gain access to the other dogs and my mom and my dad and the truck, because the dog loves to ride in the truck. You can gain access to all of that by being calm, attentive, and polite, having good manners. All right, guys, so that's how we use obedience. There's that Malinois going. That's how we, on our second week and third week, we start layering in obedience. Okay, so first week, just lots of exposure, lots of making friends, and once the dogs start to understand that there's lots of fun stuff to do in the world, then we say, oh, by the way, you have to do some stuff to earn the fun stuff. Okay, now next week we'll start to tie it all together and we'll go out back into the pre-adventure area and we'll make the off-leash time like a lot more exciting. All right, I'll see y'all next week.